What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Building Pickleball. Today, my guest is Ryan Harwood. He is the CEO of Gallery Media Group and co-owner and GM of the New Jersey Fives. Ryan, thanks a lot for joining me, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Yeah. This was pretty last minute, but it's actually really cool because you are the first team co-owner and GM on the podcast. So I've had just a bunch of questions that I've been saving up for whoever the guest was going to end up being, but lucky enough it's you, and it's really cool because you have a mix of the background that actually is very interesting to me. Of course, I've followed Gary Vee. I feel like I don't know anyone who doesn't know that name, and I know you guys are pretty closely tied. Can you kind of expand on your background as the CEO of Gallery Media Group and your experience and how it ties into what you're doing today?
Absolutely. So I actually started my career in finance. I worked for Goldman Sachs for many years. I left the finance industry back in 2010, and that's how I entered the digital media industry. I started a women's lifestyle digital media company called Pure Wow. Built that business up for about 7 years, and that is when I eventually merged and with Gary and his enterprise. And at that point in 2017, he was running an agency called VaynerMedia and still does. And I built the digital media side of things, and we basically merged and we created VaynerX to be a parent company. And underneath VaynerX, we have several different businesses, but VaynerMedia, still the full service agency that Gary's the CEO of. I run Gallery Media Group, which is all the digital media entities, along with a lot of other things like influencer marketing and experiential and social creative. And then we have several other businesses under the hood too, but we're partners in VaynerX, which is a modern day communications machine, everything to do with content, social media and advertising. And on the side, we do a lot of entrepreneurial stuff together. So 2 years ago, purchased a Major League Pickleball team. I have a background in tennis, so it was in the same circles that I came to know of Major League Pickleball and the sport of pickleball. And when I got a call from Amir Delic at the time, he told me that they were looking for marketing help for MLP to raise awareness. And at the same time, in the same breath, he mentioned that they were selling teams. And I look at Gary, and Gary looks at me, and it's always been a dream of his to buy the New York Jets, and it's been a dream of mine to buy the New York Knicks. And we said, why not start with a Major League Pickleball team?
Yeah. Damn, that's interesting. How different is it owning a team like an MLP team that's within the sport of pickleball versus, obviously, there are larger organizations in like the NBA, but what do you think are like some of the stark differences between owning a pickleball franchise versus one of those larger organizations that have more history and maybe closer ties to a city?
Yeah, I mean, listen, owning a pickleball team is incredibly fun because we're in the nascent early stages of building a league and a sport and professionalizing the sport. But yes, I mean, we need to build the revenue opportunities more, and that will come as we have more predictable media broadcast deals that are on a regular cadence that are measurable. Right now it's too hard to find us and watch, in my opinion. One weekend we're on ESPN2, the next Fox Sports, the next Pickleball TV on Amazon. It also will come when teammates, this might take a little time, but when they're all together in the same area, like you said, we don't have home stadiums now. But when we are potentially in the future in the city, you can do pop-up events, you can do meet and greets, you're going to build real fan bases locally, the same way that I'm obsessed with the New York Knicks because I rep the front of the jersey, not necessarily the back of the jersey. I die hard. That needs to be local to your city. So right now, players are spread all over the country currently. I think over time in the future, maybe there will be home stadiums, home courts, sell merchandise, real fan bases, local events, sponsorship deals are easier to come by. And that's all going to come when there are media rights deals in place, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a really good point about when I understand they're trying to get deals with different organizations, and those deals can be very lucrative. So they trying to take like the best one probably. So it switches between like Amazon, YouTube. Well, there's probably not a deal for YouTube, but Amazon, Fox. So that's a great thing that you pointed out. What would you say are some other aspects of the sport and its growth that you would consider changing or discussing more deeply?
I think those are the two core ones I mentioned. We need media rights deal is the number one thing that we need to focus on so that it is consistent in the sense that you know where to find us, what channel it's going to be on. It's not jumping from Friday to Saturday to Sunday to different days. Really getting that media rights deal that's going to be lucrative for us. And then also building more of a predictable season potentially for team sport. They're going to season, right? NFL goes from this month to this month. NBA goes from this month to this month. So maybe a season and home stadiums and home fan bases and stuff like that. But that comes with media rights deals because you need the money in order to justify going about doing things that way.
On the subject of home teams and like home stadiums, obviously MLP New York City is coming up and you have very strong ties to that city. I know that now you're in Miami. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I'm born and raised in New York my entire life. I literally just moved down to Miami 3 weeks ago. So I still very much identify as a New Yorker. It's going to be hard to shed. And I'm going to be back there all the time because our headquarters is over there in New York. But yes, I'm currently in Miami.
Yeah, that's awesome. What part of New York City were you from?
So my childhood, I grew up in Long Island, but I've been in Manhattan for about 21 years now. I was, based on the West Side primarily. Our office is in Hudson Yards. I live down in Tribeca. So, Manhattan is in my blood.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. I have a good buddy. He lives in Brooklyn. But for a spectator who's been to every MLP event or multiple MLP events, what do you think makes this one in New York City different?
It's funny. People ask me all the time, mass adoption of the sport is growing year over year, but how is that going to translate to this pro sport? And, how are you going to make the tournaments more and more exciting each time? Like now that you're 2 years in, how are you going to keep doing that? And the answer is for both of those, it's by bringing it to major cities like New York City. This is going to be massive. I mean, this is iconic Central Park. If you haven't been to MLP yet, this is the one. We've already broken record ticket sales, right? It's going to be record crowds. The ticket sales have already been broken. There's going to be thousands of fans. It's going to be incredible. We have top players and personalities competing. Annalie Waters, Ben Johns are both going to be there. You have exciting players and athletes like Riley. We've got iconic ownership that will hopefully be in attendance. My business partner, Gary Vaynerchuk with the Fives, will definitely be there on the sidelines with me. You have the Brooklyn Aces that are owned by Kevin Durant, Michael B. Jordan, and Drake and Rich. Hopefully they've got some representation. You've got the LeBron James ownership group with the New York Hustlers. Now, I'm really excited for New York and Miami MLPs, which are back-to-back really in September and October. I think those cities bring a different aura to the sport. It's more grandiose. There's more decision makers at media companies. There's more Fortune 500 brands. There's influencers. There's celebrities. So, my call to action here is if you are anywhere close to the tri-state area, this is the one to come to. It's September 19th through 22nd, Central Park. It's going to be epic.
So you're going to back-to-back MLPs. How do you make sure you don't lose your voice and that you have energy for Miami?
Well, I say back-to-back. They're not back-to-back weekends, but they're very close to each other in September, October. But you're right. I pretty much lose my voice after every single MLP with, bar none. And it's one of my favorite parts.
It's no secret that New York City has some of the best food. It's just very I think ethnically there's tons of culture, and also per square footage, there's just so much competing for such good food. So I have to ask some tourist questions. So what's your best spot for pizza in New York City?
So I've got a few, but right now, Le Industrie, which is in the West Village. It originated in Brooklyn, but it's in the West Village as well. Le Industrie is amazing. If you want the best spinach slice or vodka slice. It's a place called Lucia in Soho. Mama's 2 makes an incredible pepperoni square slice, Phillian slice. Lucali is a great one in Brooklyn as well. Man, I mean, John's of Bleecker. There's just, it's endless. The pizza in New York City, nothing better.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of foodies in the pickleball space, so I'm trying to make sure that they have a nice like itinerary for when they come through. But what's your favorite spot for food just in general, just even outside of pizza?
So this is one of the most exciting parts about it, bringing my team to New York, because now I get to show them New York the right way to do it, not them just kind of coming randomly on their own for a one-day photo shoot with a sponsor or something. So, I've got some really cool stuff lined up. We're going to Emilio's Bellato one of the nights, which in my opinion is one of the best Italian restaurants in the country. You've got Ito in Tribeca, which I think is the best sushi in the country. There's great Greek spots. I mean, you tell me a cuisine, I can give you a list of top 10, I think, in the country, in New York City. It's just amazing. So I can go on and on about this, but the team, it's funny how much planning we put into this one. They're really excited. They know this is our playground. I'm trying to balance letting them experience New York City the way we know New York, but also making sure they're focused and ready to compete. Because part of me wants to take them to everything I know about New York, the best restaurants, every day, every night, but they're professional athletes. They know what they need to do to be ready.
Yeah, take them to like Williamsburg and things like that. I think it's called Williamsburg, right? That like kind of hipster city part of town. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Given your background in tennis, what kind of insights do you feel you offer to the players?
Of course, there are similarities between tennis and pickle, but there are so many nuances and differences as well. And I don't presume to know more than the players about pickleball than they do. They know way more than I do. I've learned so much in 2 years. I mean, if you asked me 2 years ago, I was able to offer minimal to none. I think the best thing that I can offer them is obviously the mental aspect of what's very similar. And obviously just being someone that competed at a high level in a sport, just being able to have a certain mentality and offer tips from a more just a competition perspective. But we have the best coaching sport in Lee Waters, Annalie's mom, as our coach. And she is much more involved in the nitty gritty tips and things she's noticing strategy wise live on the court. I'll notice things here and there, and I pick up more and more every single time I'm there and live and in person as I watch more and more. But I rely a lot on Lee and our coach. Our captain Zane is incredibly strategic. Zane Navratil is very, very high IQ player. So we've got a lot of good heads on the court giving tips.
Yeah, shout out Zane. Now he's a local Austinite. There's definitely some overlap between running a large organization, which you've run like Pure Wow and Gallery Media Group for like 14 years, and also, like being a father and a husband. So there's got to be some overlap between like culture and team chemistry. What have you learned taking from all those different experiences and applying it to the fives?
It's a great question. That's probably the thing I enjoy most about building businesses and building brands is I really do enjoy building team cultures that make people have fun showing up to work every single day. I like to build cultures that have accountability and are based on merit and results, but in a very safe environment that make it super fun and super transparent, high integrity. A lot of organizations, not, whether it be sports, whether it be businesses, they're fear-based environments. They run on fear. And it's, if you don't do well, you will be let go. If you don't do this, it's based on stepping on each other's toes, trying to get ahead. And I like to have a very safe environment on businesses I build and teams I build. I want people to love being a part of the Fives brand and the Fives culture, or the Pure Wow brand and the Pure Wow culture. It's probably the most important thing to me is when you've left our organization, you have a certain feeling and vibe about us and the way we built the business and the way we treated you. So I think there are a lot of similarities. I think it's probably my greatest strength that I can offer to the team, is bringing them together, making them feel the passion that I feel, and they want to work that much harder because they look to the left, they look to the right, they look to me, they look to Lee, and they want to actually do well for everybody around them, not just themselves. And that takes work. You got to put in that work and make sure that you're being a good leader.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a really good point about making it a safe environment. Another question about the business side that I'd love to ask you about is scaling a business. You've talked about how currently you're learning how to scale a business. You've been great at starting it from scratch, and now you just happen to be at that next step where scaling is of kind of like at the forefront of what's important right now. If you were going to run a course, like a course for learning, what would you say would be some key chapters of the course that you would want to discuss with the cohort, scaling specifically?
The founder mentality is one where you do everything, right? You're in the mailroom, you're taking out the trash, and you're also selling the biggest deals of the company, and you're hiring, you're doing everything. And as you scale, you can't do that for many reasons. One, there's lack of bandwidth, but two, you need to learn how to delegate and let go and really allow people you've hired that are super talented to take it and run with it so that they feel empowered. That is something that takes years to learn because, right, as a founder, like I said, you're used to doing everything. So you want to get your hands dirty. You want to make sure everything is going great, et cetera. So I would say you gotta practice that, and you got to make sure that you're giving some rope to the really talented people that you are hiring. I also think that everyone's heard the expression that culture eats strategy for lunch. I think there are maybe better ways to put it, but I think that the point of that is there is nothing more important at all, because people politics is always going to be the root of all toxicity in any company. Entitlement, people thinking that they deserve something over someone else, etc. You need to completely continue to hammer home the fact that the way one person talks to another and how they make them feel is the most important thing in the world. And that is, if you work hard and you're nice to everyone, good things happen, period. End of story. It's so simple from that perspective. Of course, you need to be talented. You need to, understand what you're doing and have some good strategy and stuff. But like the simple things are the ones that end up usually destroying companies over the long run. And I think if you go back to the roots and understand why you created the business and the culture you cultivated from the beginning, and really try to make sure that every person underneath you embodies that and continues to push it down to the next generation and the next generation, you have a really good shot of trying to kind of.
Yeah. It's tough when you have a large organization. Negativity can definitely be cancerous, but positivity can also spread just as rapidly as well too. So it just depends on trying to, like you said, just create a thriving environment. Obviously not like blind bliss or anything like that, but they have to believe it. They have to believe in the mission. They have to believe in everything that everyone is doing, and it's all contributing to one thing, one important thing at the end of the day that benefits everyone. But something I've found to be very interesting that I am very ignorant about because I'm not too involved on the team side is profitability for these teams. And given your marketing background, but also the business background, how do you make a team, in your perspective, profitable, especially just specifically speaking for an MLP team, just because it's so early in the stages of the sport and trying to get the fan base and everything like that?
Yeah, just like any other startup, the early days, it's not going to necessarily be profitable. You're investing in the brand. but you can try to get as close to break even as possible and, not lose money per se. But that comes with sponsorship deals, that comes with merchandise sales, that comes with pop-up events. So really the big thing is the media rights deal. That's what's going to ultimately tip the scale. But in the interim, you're scrapping together all the other stuff I just mentioned and really trying to offset the costs of running the team. But we're really hyper focused on making sure we get a good media rights deal, even if it's a 1 year deal, because we want to prove the viewership is tremendous. Because when we have been on broadcast, when we've been on Fox Sports, we've been on ESPN2, we've actually driven more viewership than the majority of some of the leagues out there in sports that have gotten multi 8-9 figure deals. So the proof is in the pudding. We just need to get it done and make sure that we're able to tout that.
What do you think is important to retain the viewership? I think it's easy for just people to like turn on the channel and be like, oh, this is pickleball. It's novel to them. It's novel to them. So like, how do you retain that viewership, you think?
I think it's a couple things. Number one is I think it takes them getting to know the individual players, the underlying narratives, coming to an MLP or PPA, experiencing the intensity and passion live, which is why I'm saying, please come to New York. You will not forget it. The NBA didn't become as successful as it currently is until they let the personalities and the players lead the way. Fans get attached to humans and they get attached to team logos and cities, and build both brands, the brands of the players and the brands of the teams and identities. Fans will have the same enthusiasm and passion as the rest of us. We also have to continue to tweak and work on the production value. I think they've done a really good job of increasing that and getting better over time. I mean, from 2 years ago when we were doing this to now, it's night and day. The close call replay that is going into effect as of this weekend is going to be tremendous. That legitimizes the sport in a big way. It's not kind of left to chance. And yeah, I mean, those are some of the things that I think, and obviously predictability of where you can find the match when we're promoting it. Like I said in the beginning of this podcast, on Friday, ESPN2, on Tuesday, YouTube, on Thursday, Fox Sports, that's really challenging. So like it's easier to find it, because I'll tell you this, I think of it similar to golf in the sense that there are people that are obsessed with playing golf and they love it. I am not one of those people. I hate golf. I think it's the most boring thing in the entire world to watch it play. But I respect it. There's millions and millions of people that are obsessed in the craziest way. Those people, when they sit down on a Sunday and they flip the channel and they see it on, they keep it on. Now, we're seeing a similar phenomenon now. Millions of people are playing pickleball now. If they're able to flip through their channels and they flip on Fox Sports or Tennis Channel or Amazon or whatever it is, and they see it and it's easy to find and there's lack of friction, they're going to keep it on, and we're likely going to retain those viewers because you want to see who the best players are. Like I play twice a week. I'm a 4-5. I'm really good. Let me see how good these guys are. Let me see if I can get to be this good. Like, that's always a fascinating thing.
Yeah, definitely. So I've watched some of your past interviews, and you've talked about the importance of peaking. In July, the Fives were the only undefeated team, and of course, just naturally, the course has changed. How does your mindset shift as the GM, and what perspective do you try to bring to the team when there's a slight momentum shift like that?
Yeah, listen, don't get too high, don't get too low, maintain consistency. Remain healthy. Don't put too much emphasis on any one singular match. They're all equal until playoff time. They all matter the same. So, like you said, we were undefeated. I kind of like the fact that we lost to the current top 2 seeds in the last tournament. We lost to the Shock. We lost to the Flash last time we played, and we won't play them again, hypothetically, until the playoffs. We don't get them again in the regular season. So I kind of like that my team has revenge on the mind, and it's not easy to withstand that vengeance from a team as passionate as the Fives. You know, they're salivating to get to the playoffs and get that revenge. So I think it's playing out well. But yes, we need to peak with confidence and on-court chemistry heading into the playoffs. Absolutely. You know, it pains me to say this, it kills me because I despise the team more than anything in the world, but the Miami Heat is one of the best teams at peaking when they're in the regular season. And then it comes playoff time, and Spoelstra has them as the 8th seed, upsetting the number 1 seed like year after year. Like he has them ready to go. They're built for the playoffs, and he has them peaking in the playoffs. I think we're built for the playoffs. We're an incredible dream breaker team. We like pressure. That's why the mid is helpful for us. It's more of a one and done elimination thing versus getting more points for winning in regulation versus dream breaker. So I think we're built for the playoffs, and we're going to have them ready to go down the playoff time.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's great insight. But is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would like to talk about?
You asked earlier off camera, you know, how am I using the background in media to build the Fives? You know, we believe brand is built in social these days. It's not built, your brand is not built in TV or print anymore. Like, it's built in social media. And I also believe in mascots. I believe in content at scale. And I think for a small and mighty team, shout out to Chanel, we do a really good job at creating engaging content around the players and the people involved in the Fives. You know, our visual identity is unmistakable. You don't forget the clowns. You don't forget our colors and our passion. You know, to a casual fan, not to the fanatics, but to a casual fan, I think it's hard to differentiate a lot of the other teams out there with their names and their team colors. They sound the same, and their team colors are very mute. You know, the Lakers are purple and gold. The Celtics are green and white, bright green and white. Those are unmistakable team identities. So trying to use those skill sets to build the Fives and the brand is something that I've had a lot of fun doing and look forward to continue to do.
Yeah, man, those are all great insights. It's great to get someone with your background who's got some a little like cross-pollination and bringing those insights from other sports. So I appreciate it. The team has a mid-season championship title. What was the conversation like that night with the team following a big win, yet you're still in the middle of this season?
Yeah, I mean, that was beyond fun, winning the mid-season title. We were giddy. You know, it was the first one for Anna Lee, only title she hasn't won multiple of in pickleball already. You know, Will Howells and Mari Humbert were first timers. So to experience that thrill was awesome. And once you get a taste, you want it back. So we have a lot of fun together. It's a good-natured, authentic fun with this team. It's not manufactured or forced. It's really a great group of people that don't step on each other's toes. They all know their respective roles. They don't let ego get in the way of the team. And if we win the season title in Orlando, we're going straight to Disney World. You know, Will and Zane are getting clown tattoos. Mari and Emily are going to get temporary tattoos. Lee is getting water poured on her head. And Blake, my assistant GM, he's definitely getting a face tattoo.
I can't wait to see that. Of course, with your background in marketing and brands, something I definitely have to ask is building strategy. And you've talked about this previously on another podcast as well. What is your building strategy? You've talked about before, you've mentioned putting players at the front and building narratives. Can you expand on that?
Yes, and I think this really applies to Major League Pickleball and PPA in general, is tell the stories, the hundreds of untold stories. The same way there's history, you know, we just watched the U.S. Open semifinals. The same way there's history between Taylor Fritz and Francis Tiafoe since they were young. What's the history on court and off court for the various players in each match? What do these players like to do off the court? Who are they? What are their hobbies, their passions? Like, get into it. Storytelling is the ultimate way to connect fans and humans. So I am very passionate about telling the stories between the players. Why is this matchup really exciting coming up in New York City, etc.
Awesome. Super cool. On the subject of brand building, something that I see myself is always the social media aspect and players building their brands. What insight or advice would you give to players on how they could build their brand, and then not just players, but also teams as well?
Well, first of all, for the players, I see a lot of them on social media. Obviously, it gets fed into my algorithm now that I'm watching pickleball points a lot. I would give the advice of document, don't create. Too many players are creating content. They're not documenting their day to day or just documenting their practices. Don't force the story or the lesson or the ask me anything. Just document it all and let an editor find the best authentic moments and stories. It's too much of the same right now in pickle. It's how to serve. It's how to, do your third shot drop. It's, you got to use creative, unique formats, not the same old hype reel of your highlight shots from your last PPA. I mean, every single player does that right now. It's just like, okay, here's this, bunch of good shots I hit from my last PPA tournament. Like, you got to get more creative than that, and you got to document your day to day, and then let an editor do their magic and find the magic in it. So that's how I would give advice to build your brand. And then when it comes to teams, it's actually very similar. It's like, show behind the scenes. Don't just do a hype reel from the last MLP. Like, show behind the scenes. What were you doing during that practice? What did you do in the meal? Tell what stories about the various players and what they like to do, and the story behind your team and the ownership and the coach and the GM, and let them get to know your organization. And then have a very, very clear identity of who you are, what the team stands for. And if you start out in the wild, you're like, oh yeah, I know the clowns.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's a really good point. They're usually doing those like questions where it's like a front facing camera and then the person behind the camera asks them the question, but it should be more like show, don't tell, instead of, like you're saying, just like let it be shown in the way they live their life. And that way people have something that people have like a matching affinity or mutual affinity towards something, and it just naturally happens like, oh, that person's interested in that thing. I happen to be too. I agree. There's a lot of copying and just feels a little, I guess, like overused and kind of forced. So you're based out of New York. You mentioned it earlier in the call. You have like more than 2 decades in the state. What does this event mean to you?
It means a lot. This is our backyard. Our friends, our family, our social networks are all based here. We've been talking about MLP and how exciting it is for a while now, and now they get to see it firsthand. It's our time to get the Big Apple obsessed with professional pickleball. Sports in New York can really drive sports awareness and hype to a whole other level. Look at the U.S. Open for tennis. Look at Madison Square Garden with the Knicks and Rangers. When the city of New York loves and supports a sport, it's like no other. And it's the capital for media and brand sponsors. It's the densest population in any major city in the U.S. So we have to put on a show. And September 19th and 22nd, we are going to put on a show, and it's going to be amazing. So I would say, please come.
Yeah, looking forward to following you guys for sure. Sweet, man. Yeah, again, just really appreciate you taking the time on such short notice and being open to sharing your insights and opinions on a lot of these things.
Absolutely, man. My pleasure. And it was great to meet you, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, good luck out in New York. And I guess when this goes out, it'll be like a few days before. So good luck this weekend.